So this is my very, very first ever death talk with you guys. Let's just call it, let's talk about death, baby. Let's talk about death, baby. Let's talk about you and me. So anyways, as you guys know, or most of you know, I am a former mortician, an embalmer, and a funeral director. I hold a degree in mortuary science. And when I joined Butcher Babies, I couldn't do that anymore because being a mortician is definitely not just a 9-to-5 job. You work weekends, holidays. You don't get any time off for any potential touring. It's a pretty invasive job, invasive to your life, invasive in all kinds of crazy ways. So I couldn't do that anymore and I missed it. So I went into grief counseling instead, and I'm able to do that in my spare time or when we're not touring worldwide and connect with people in that way. So it has been really, really awesome to do that. I'm also a death doula, and I guess some of the first questions that I got from you guys when I posted a little while ago on Instagram was, what is a death doula? And a death doula is an end-of-life specialist that actually helps to ease your transition in all different kinds of ways. I can be of service to your family. I can be of service to you to kind of explain to you what is going on with your body, what's happening. If you're terminally ill, I can on legacy projects. So you can do some of the things, finish some of the things that you want to finish before you go. Hi guys, I see a lot of you coming in. So nice to see all of you. Hi. I know, right? Cool Venom shirt. It's Charlie's shirt. So here's a tip for you girls. If you have a boyfriend, raid their closets, even like the corner spaces. Sometimes you'll find a t-shirt balled up and you'll unball it and it's something completely amazing, like this Venom shirt. So anyways, I want to answer any questions that you guys might have about death, dying, the embalming process, all the creepy questions that you've been afraid to ask people in the past, because talking about it is actually a really healthy thing. You know, when I first went to mortuary school, a lot of my family members and friends, they didn't want to hear about school at all. They thought I was crazy for going to school for that. They said that you're going to see things that you don't want to see. They didn't see the beauty in it that I saw in that field. People, you know, realize that when they are talking about death, it kind of reminds them that they're going to die one day too. And it, you know, of course that'll bother anybody, right? All of us want this like notion that we're going to live forever and be around forever, but we're not. You know, the thing about death is that it makes life worth living. So these days, I try to have a death positive attitude, and which is kind of strange for me because actually death is probably the thing that I'm afraid most of. And that's probably why I became a mortician in the first place. And I think it's healthy to talk about these fears so that, you know, we can kind of live our life in a more positive way before we go. Hi guys. Hi. So, let's see. What are your questions, you guys? Let's see what I have on Instagram. I know people had some questions rolling through. Someone asked me what I thought about the trend of corporations buying up all the funeral homes. And actually where I'm from, where I went to school in California, a lot of the funeral homes were already very corporate, and you have a different department for everything, meaning that you go to school to learn how to embalm. You have mortuary law classes. You know how to run a funeral home top to bottom. But when you actually go work in the mortuary, you are departmentalized. So I'll be embalming, someone else will do the funeral directing, someone else will handle the accounts. And to be honest, I had envisioned in my head going into funeral service that I would do everything, maybe own my own mortuary one day and really you know, be involved every step of the way. It's not like that in so many places anymore. I think in smaller towns, it's like that. In the Midwest, it's like that. But in big cities, it's generally pretty corporate nowadays, which, you know, things are efficient, but I still think it kind of sucks because I think that if you are an embalmer, it's important to do everything. So let's talk about, see, Gina says, that's my biggest thing. When talking about death, I start to freak out about my own death and get scared that one day it will be all over. All right, so let's talk about that for a minute. Yeah, that, it freaks everybody out. We're young, we're having fun, we're living our life, and suddenly the years start ticking by, and then, you start getting older, your body changes. I think aging for me has started to scare me a lot. I mean, the thought of, not being able to do the things that you've done for so many years, your life changing in that way, that scares me. And then, being bedridden, having a terminal illness, all of those things, everything is it is a scary, scary thought. But at the same time, being a little scared is not a bad thing, because I think you learn how to take care of yourself a little bit better. You learn how to appreciate things while you can do them. You appreciate spending time with people that you love. You appreciate the process of working your ass off to reach your goals. And all of those things have meaning because they will be over. And, one thing that I always tell people is I've embalmed people who were 12, 16, 95, in their 50s. You don't know when that time is going to be. So if there's something that you want to do with your life, get off your ass and do it. Because whenever I've been around someone they don't regret the things that they've done, they regret the things that they didn't do. And that's what's going to make death really hard. Looking back and having regrets that you didn't get to do something, or that you didn't try. We're not going to succeed at everything that we try, but at least we try. And that's the beauty in living. So there's some band questions here. I'll have some band questions too. So a lot of bands doing concerts at drive-ins. What are your thoughts about that? If that's the way that we had to do it in the future, I guess I would be down to try it. But I'm the kind of girl that likes to feel the energy of all those bodies in the pit. And I think that it just wouldn't be the same, right? I don't know. Okay. In cremation, is there leftover ashes? And if so, how do you get rid of them? So cremation, let's talk about that. I don't know if you guys exactly know what happens in cremation, but the body is incinerated. And after it's incinerated, it's not just dust right away. You actually have to grind down the bones a little bit. So it is kind of a process that you didn't expect. And it sounds a little scary, but it's very purifying. There's actually a new way to do cremation that I think is pretty cool, with water rather than fire. And if you're kind of in the mindset where fire is a scary thing to you, like for me, I'm not down with cremation because can I be frank here? You're put in a little box and you're put in an oven and then they incinerate your body. And to me, I just don't like that at all. But water for me would be a more healing, cleansing thing. So if I was going to opt for cremation, I would do that. But yes, there is ashes left over. You have to grind down the bone and then you separate everything and you put it up nicely for the family. There's really cool things that you can do with cremated remains too. I just saw, and I'll post on my Good to Grief Los Angeles page. You can put the cremated ashes into a ring, into all kinds of different stuff. And I think that's really beautiful. I would love to have the person that some of my relatives or my boyfriend, or that sounds terrible. Don't tell Charlie I said I want my boyfriend's ashes on my finger, but I would definitely opt for that. My dog's ashes, one of my girlfriends just had her dog's ashes put into this ring. And I think that's a beautiful, beautiful tribute to someone. Hold on, let's see some more messages here. I've just been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and seizures and MRI. It just made me worry for the future, not taking life for granted. I'm so sorry that that happened. Yeah, it's, and you do go through a period of grief when you're diagnosed with a life-changing illness, because your life is changing. And it's really, really hard to take that in. And it's, I would write about it, definitely. I would start journaling about your feelings that you have in regards to your new condition. And again, please live your life, do whatever you need to do, and don't ever give up trying any new treatments. And gosh, my heart goes out to you. This is live. Someone asked if it isn't live. I'm using a Restream app. So what's the longest you'd be willing to grow your hair? Well, I've had hair down past my butt and I stomped on it on stage many times, and that's not fun. So, what's my view on the afterlife? Okay, that is a loaded question, and everybody's different. So, the cool thing, and someone had asked me actually before I go into that, someone had asked me on Instagram to talk about going to school for what I do, and they talked about thanatology. And I actually, in mortuary school, we took classes in thanatology and religion. I learned everything about every single religion, and I used to work at a Catholic mortuary, even though I personally am an atheist. And so I respect everyone's wishes. I respect everyone's views on the afterlife. I never let my views try to sway someone else's. I don't think that's appropriate. For myself, I don't believe in a heaven and hell. I don't believe in the afterlife that they teach you when you go to your catechism and everything at school. I grew up Catholic, but I was always questioning things. But I do believe in energy. I believe that the energy just doesn't just go away. It's transferred to something else. So what is that? We don't know. It could be, a beautiful flower, a tree. It could be that your soul does go to another person. I don't know. Nobody knows. That's the thing that is so crazy about this. It's like the last frontier. We just don't know what happens. But I believe that if you have your own belief system, you should, respect that and pay homage to it. Like I said, for me personally, I have this very science-based mind, and I think that the exchange of energy is how I like to think about it. How hard was it to go to school and tour with a metal band? So when I went to mortuary school, I had not started Butcher Babies yet with Heidi. I finished mortuary college in 2007, and then I met Heidi in a cover band that we were in, and then we formed Butcher Babies in, I think, 2009, 2010. Sorry, I have fur in my mouth. I have a new fur seat I'm really excited about, but I'm getting fur everywhere. So, anyway, so I there's no possible way that I would have been able to do mortuary school and tour at the same time, because it's very hands-on. You have embalming labs a few times a week, and it is a very demanding program. You cannot miss school at all when you go to a school like that. I had to be there at 8 a.m. I would drive an hour to my school, be there at 8 a.m., be there all day, and the labs are very intense. It's chemistry, anatomy, all of that stuff, and I loved it. And if you guys have a calling towards that field, you should totally do it, because we need more great people in funeral service. But there's also other careers that you can go into that aren't as intensive. So I did go to school online while I was on tour to do my grief counseling, but I already had a degree, so it wasn't too much more work, but it was still very, very hard. It's hard to work, period, when you're going to school. I know a lot of us, we're not graced with the ability to, just have unlimited funds and go to school and have everything easy. So a lot of us have had to have that kind of struggle, but I truly believe that it makes the end result worth it. Like when you get your degree and you've worked your ass off, like going to school, working, and not seeing your friends, it just makes everything that much better. So yay, I love Butcher Babies tattoos. Someone said it's admirable that I accept everyone's beliefs. I think that you have to, especially when you do a career like funeral service. It's such a personal thing. I actually have one girlfriend, one of my very best friends since high school. she is a firm believer in God, and she knows that I'm not. So we have a little thing, and I say, if you go before me, you send me a sign and I'll start believing. So if she dies before I die, she's going to send me some sort of sign to tell me to shape up and start saying my prayers. But, you know, you can have conversations like that with your friends. And I do encourage that, you guys. It doesn't have to be, oh my God, you don't think like I think, so we can't be friends. That sucks. Like, you don't want to be that kind of a person. Definitely be open to having these conversations. Conversations like that are beautiful with your friends. You said you go to AA. That's great. Poughkeepsie. I love Poughkeepsie. Okay, let's see if there's any more questions about death. I know you guys have some questions about embalming and all that kind of stuff. You have to. So more questions about how I became a grief practitioner. I just, you know, I really, really missed working at the funeral home. I loved helping people. And so it became very important for me to help people like that again. Have I ever had a cadaver sit up on you as you're working? No. Let me tell you where that rumor comes from. So when you die, you know, there's before rigor mortis sets in, and actually when you are an embalmer, after rigor mortis sets in, you massage it out after you embalm. So, you may see twitches and stuff like that when someone dies. They're not alive. They're not coming back. It's just the body, you know, doing last little twitches, releasing things. A lot of people are going to the bathroom on themselves for a little. This is all gross stuff, but it's stuff that no one ever says. So I feel like it's important to kind of talk about. It's just the body processes, and yeah. So no, they're not going to jump up and walk off the table, but there is some little twitches sometimes. Any advice on how do you cope with death and tragedy? Was a first responder, and I've seen my fair share of both. You know, my heart goes out to first responders. You guys are fucking awesome. And my stepdad was a paramedic years and years ago. And when I went to mortuary school, he was pretty concerned for my mental well-being, because he said that I was going to see things that I should never see. And I did. But I believe that if you are the kind of person that has the empathy to deal with it and to help people who can't deal with it through the process, then you need to go out there and do those things. So you first responders, that's you guys too. But you do have to take some time to decompress. And again, I always say writing is a really, really, really great tool. If you're having a hard time, you know, start to journal about some of the feelings that you're going through, and talk, you know, say all the things that maybe you can't say to your partner at home, to your kids, or whoever, you know, is usually your safe place to talk to. Sometimes we don't want to inflict like any damage on them by telling them things that we see. So write about it, journal about it, and you know, pour your soul out into the paper and see if that helps. I think it's a really good thing. And if you have partners, if you have people that you work with that are going through some of the same things as you, seeing some of the same things as you guys, please talk about it to each other and say, you know, even if you feel a little weird about it at first, say to your friend, hey man, that thing that we had to go do the other day, it really affected me. And I just wondered if I could talk to you about it maybe. And maybe that person's feeling the same way, and you guys can share that and kind of talk it through together. And of course, I'm always here for you guys. If you need some extra help, I'm totally here for you. I do Skype sessions worldwide, and we can also talk about it here. I want this to be our Tuesday safe place for any of you that, you know, need to talk about anything that you need to talk about. Someone asked, what's the smell when you open the body? To be honest, it depends on the body and how long it's been dead, the conditions, where it was. It's different. It's different every time. being buried next to a tree would be nice. Can you really do that? So there are some really, really cool new ways to be buried in pods. And I think in the future, we're going to see more of this because as we become a more like death positive society, I think people are getting really turned off by the traditional embalming and the $10,000 casket that goes in the ground. And I think people want this kind of nice exchange with the earth. Like I was talking about energy earlier and my beliefs, my personal beliefs. I think it would be really cool to be buried in one of those pods or even a sheet that can decompose as you decompose and then your energy goes into the earth. And I just think that's so pure and so beautiful rather than, rotting away in a coffin that's 6 feet underground and that costs your family so much money. So there's some really cool new ways, and there's a lot of laws about where you can bury bodies and all of that, but I think in the future we will see more green cemeteries where you can go and you can get buried next to a beautiful tree, and that's going to be great. So yeah, Cher, don't just go and pick out a tree in the backyard because that may not work out so well for you. But look into green burials. Those are pretty awesome. Yeah, eco-friendly burials. This is what I'm talking about. So pod burial, green burials. So this is a great question. Someone asked me what I think about DMT. This is a great question. So I was having this conversation the other day with Charlie's daughter. So DMT is a chemical that is produced when you're born and when you die. And it's the only two times that in your life that this chemical is produced. And so, again, these are my thoughts and theories, and I completely respect everyone's thoughts. So this is just my take on DMT. So being born and dying are the two most stressful things that your body can go through. So the DMT is released, and a lot of times people have near-death experiences. That light that they see, that they think is the light at the end of the tunnel, or whatever they think it is, they're actually hallucinating, and that's DMT. Sometimes when you're in a room with someone who's actively dying, they may say, he's here, he's coming to take me, my husband's here to take me back. And is that really what's happening, or is it the DMT? Is it a hallucinogenic experience? It's so hard to say because we don't know what happens when you die, and I guess that we will find out. We'll all find out eventually, but that's my thoughts on it. So I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts. So someone who was a family service counselor says they agree with green too. She says she wants to be cremated and put in a firecracker and set off on the 4th of July. I love that. I love it. I really, like I said, I love the idea of cremation. I prefer water cremation rather than fire, but it's much, much cleaner. And have I ever seen someone die? Yes, I have. I have been in the room. So I worked for hospice before Butcher Babies as well. And so I sat with people as they died. I had a lot of terminally ill patients. And I feel it's a beautiful experience. And if you love someone and you have a chance to be with them as they die, don't be afraid. Be there with them, hold their hand. I think it's good for all parties involved. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful experience. Yeah, the DMT is crazy stuff, you guys. Look it up if you haven't looked it up. Check it out. And someone asked me where I fell in love with death. That's a beautiful way to say it. So I've always been fascinated by death since I was a kid. I don't really know exactly why, but I was very fascinated with the body and how it worked. And I went to my grandpa's funeral when I was probably like 6, and I was fascinated by everything, by the mourning process and just seeing his body laying out. And after that, I started to, if I saw something dead outside, I would kind of poke it with a stick, try to figure out why it died, what happens when it dies, why do we have to die? So many questions, and I would read and read and read about death, and it was a very scary thing to me. In my head, as a young kid, I was always like, well, how can I avoid this death thing? What can I do to make sure it doesn't happen to me? So it's kind of a fascination. And and that turned into me going to mortuary school, when I got older. I worked in entertainment for a while, as most of you know, and then I got tired of it. I wanted something more, and so I went back to something that I was originally interested in, which was death. Someone is asking, how do you approach counseling grieving people as someone who isn't classically trained in managing grief? I'm a pharmacist, and I have a lot of patients come to me grieving those they have recently lost, and I don't even know how to begin to help them cope. Any recommendations on resources or places to help people appropriately grieve? If you want to send me an email or a message on Facebook, I can send you some resources. But also, I think sometimes when people, and this goes for everybody, you guys, if someone's having a hard day, if they've lost someone, you don't have to have the right words to say. You're not trained to have the right words to say, and you're not always going to. Sometimes just a squeeze of the hand or a hug can really brighten someone's day and send them on the start of their healing process. It can really a squeeze of someone's hand or, things to say, because you never know someone's belief system. And I hate when people say this. And again, no matter what your belief system is, never ever say, well, God wanted their angel back, or, well, he's in a better place now. Because that's not the case to everybody. If someone lost their 15-year-old son in a car accident and they're grieving and you say, well, God wanted their angel back, it's like, well, no, he had lots of life to live here. It's well-intended, perhaps, but it's actually the very wrong thing to say. And it's okay to say, I can't imagine what you're going through. I'm sorry. Please let me know what you need. And also, if someone's grieving too, you don't have to, please don't wait for them to call you, because most people, when they're grieving, they're not in the right mindset to call you up and tell you about it. So what you can do is just offer your love and support from a distance. You can call, leave a message if they don't answer, and say, I just want you to know that I'm thinking of you. I can't imagine what you're going through, but I want you to know that I'm here for you. And that's that. Let's see. Someone said they wonder if DMT is very common. Oh, hi, Matthew. DMT it's like I said, it happened. It's in all of us. It is secreted when you are born and when you die. Someone asked, how does water cremation work? Are they boiled or not? No, they're not boiled. That sounds terrible. I mean, it's think about like really fast moving water. I guess that's the best I could say. You felt your dad's spirit leave. Yeah, I believe that. It's, you guys, when I embalm the body, it's like, you can tell there's like whatever you want to call it, whether you want to call it spirit or the energy, whatever that means to you, it's definitely not there anymore. It definitely leaves the body. So it's a pretty fascinating thing, wherever that goes. Someone said they're pagan and they want to be buried in a different way. Well, share with the class. How do you want to be buried? So does the embalming method differ from country to country, or is it universal? So embalming, it differs from different religions, different backgrounds. So you guys might enjoy where embalming came from. Does anyone know why we started to embalm the way that we do here? Well, it started in the Civil War, in case you didn't know this. There's a guy named Thomas Holmes, and he was the father of modern embalming as we know it today. So, back in the day, if you were coming here on a ship and you died, they'd throw you in a vat of alcohol or something like that. And we know about mummification. We know about some of the cool stuff they used to do back in the day. But modern embalming started because, soldiers were dying in the Civil War, and this Thomas Holmes thought, I want to be able to send these boys back and make a profit, and how am I going to send them back so they're not rotten by the time they get to their family, wherever their family is? So he started embalming these soldiers, and I think that he did it for either free at first or for a pretty low price, and he would send them back to the families, and it was like free advertising, and so then all of a sudden everybody wanted to get embalmed, and it's just become part of who we are. Everybody, now we all have funerals, we all have viewings, and embalming, arterial embalming that Thomas Holmes invented is you basically drain the blood through the veins at the same time as you pump in the embalming fluid, which is like formaldehyde based, through the arteries. So that's how it works, and it goes through the circulatory system. It goes out to the tissues, just the way like blood flows through your system, and makes everything stiff and perfect. So that's how it works. You're right. Someone said the planet would be destroyed long ago without our friend called death. And that's true. We would be so overpopulated. You guys, we would be miserable if every single person lived forever. I still kind of want to live forever in a way, but someone asked, is it hard for me to find love? I'm not sure what that means, that because of the kind of career that I chose, but I don't know. I think I'm pretty happy in love, so that's a really weird question. Someone is asking what the process is like if you're an organ donor. So in mortuary school, I learned how to harvest the bones for organ donating, which is a really cool experience. So if you're an organ donor, when you die, they will immediately harvest your bones. Long bones are popular. And instead, the mortician will put in like a pipe so that you can still be viewed, if that makes sense. So your body still looks like your body at your funeral. Do I think divorce is like a death? I think definitely. It's a death of who you were at one point with that person. Divorce brings up all kinds of different feelings. It's definitely a huge grieving process. Again, grief is my specialty. If anyone needs any grief work, follow my Good Grief Los Angeles page. But again, I'll be back here every Tuesday to talk about stuff like that. Someone says, I wanted to be a funeral director. I ended up stopping because in the 90s, it was hard to be a woman in that field. Yeah, it still was. When I went to school, and I had a huge amount of women in my class, and so many of my friends are from mortuary school are practicing, and they're trade embalmers and embalmers, and I'm so proud of them and so happy for them. There definitely was a stigma with women in funeral directing, even though I feel like women have great attention to detail. They're very loving, and I feel they make amazing, amazing embalmers, and even better funeral directors. I will say that when I graduated from mortuary college, I'm also qualified to be an autopsy tech under the coroner. And I went to a place called 1-800-Autopsy because I wanted to get a job there. And the owner laughed in my face and said, I might hire you to work at the front desk, but you won't be doing autopsies here because I'm a woman. So it's very male dominated. I tend to pick male dominated careers. It's crazy, between metal and funeral directing, all that, and embalming. Someone is going through the stages of grief and loss. And yes, there's the very generic stages of grief. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, she wrote about them. She invented them: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. And yes, they are the basic things that you'll go through, but it goes a lot deeper than that as well. And there's actually new new guidelines as well that are up. But yes, if you know anything, if you know about Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, you know about those. Have I counseled anyone that made me rethink my outlook? My outlook on what? I'm not really sure what you mean by that, if you could clarify. Someone asked when the last time I touched a dead body was. I mean, it's been a little bit now. We're in the middle of a pandemic, so I can't do home visits. Don't be fooled, caller. Us women are superior to men. Yes, girl power. You know, I believe that men and women can both do a lovely job at many things. I think the key is being passionate about whatever you're doing. My favorite thing is when I see someone talk about their job and they have that light in their eyes. Like you can tell that they genuinely love their job. So I'm all for man or woman doing something like that. Would you be talking about other topics such as anxiety, depression in future streams? Yes. Okay, so today's stream is just kind of like a free-for-all. I'm answering as many questions as I can. But you guys, we can totally limit topics to one thing during the day. We'll talk about whatever you want. Like I said, I am an all-around grief coach, former mortician, death doula. I talk about all things: death, dying, terms, loss of a job, loss of sense of self, loss of a pet. So many different things, you guys. So whatever you want to talk about, whatever kind of loss, whatever kind of grief you want to talk about, I'm here for you. Let's see. Do I have any advice for young children dealing with parents' deaths? Yes, don't pretend. Don't hide it from them at all. Children are smarter and more capable of understanding death than you realize. So be honest with them. If they ask questions, tell them the honest truth about what they're asking, and make sure that that parent is still a part of their life throughout their life. And you can do that through, upholding traditions, having them write a journal to mommy or daddy, whoever they're missing. But definitely always, mom or dad, always having a place at every life event, no matter what it is, through graduations, weddings. Make sure that that parent is represented in some way. And, have conversations. Say, remember when mommy or daddy used to do this with you? Remember how much you love that? Don't feel like they're going to break if you bring it up. It's healthy to talk about it. It's healthy to bring it up, and definitely something that you want to do. Carla, how would you respectfully split a person's ashes? I lost my dad 4 years ago, and the family have been at war over ashes. Man, families fight over stuff like this all the time, and it sucks because you think that the one time you could come together is when you lose someone that you love. I mean, if it were me, I would buy beautiful matching little urns, something that represents your family, something beautiful, and just split them up evenly. Something that, or if it's distant cousins, maybe they get a little less, but make it something so that everyone feels included. At least they're not fighting over money or property. At least it's the ashes because they love this person that much, right? So, like I said, I would buy something matching, something really cool that represents your dad and his personality, and split them up as evenly as you possibly can. Someone asked, as a grief counselor, is there a fine line between staying professional and being overly emotionally invested with the family? I do think you have to retain your professionalism, because a lot of times the family will be falling apart, and you need to be the strong one. That's your job, to help everyone through the hardest part of their life. So yes, I feel like it's perfectly fine to shed a tear, to give hugs, to squeeze hands, to show that you genuinely care. When I was a funeral director, there were many times that I went in the other room and cried for a minute, but I try to show a very professional face when I'm in front of the family, because that's what they need you to do. I'm glad that you had a death doula. So death doulas are kind of a newer thing. Not everyone knows about them. So if you guys don't know what a death doula is basically, as a midwife is for birth, she's a midwife for death. So if you are, this gentleman said he lost his wife. I had a friend that died from the same thing. And they had a doula, and the doula will kind of, like I said, explain the process to you and kind of guide you through some of the hardest moments, for everyone, whether it's the family or the person who's dying, who needs the extra comfort and attention. And they're a really, really neat resource. And I think that we're going to see more doulas popping up. Someone said they lost their baby 5 years ago and they feel guilty that they didn't help her. I know, guilt is a huge part of the grieving process, Deborah, and it's something that is really, really hard to get over. But you kind of have to forgive yourself for having those kinds of feelings. And again, maybe something that you could try is writing a letter to your baby and telling her how you feel about the events. I don't know what happened. I don't know what the situation was, but if you have some guilt surrounding that, you could start off and say, "Dear baby, I'm sorry, I don't know the name of your child," and say, "Hey, I'm sorry," and go through your emotions, your feelings at the time, right through it, and then forgive yourself for whatever you feel guilty about, and try to move past that. I did see The Haunting of Hill House, and I usually don't like shows where there's a funeral director or embalmer involved. I think they're, like what was the one show, 6 Feet Under? I was always yelling at the TV, like, they would never do that. That's not real. But I actually really liked Shirley's character, and she seemed like a typical funeral director. So that was pretty cool. Thanks, Michelle. Well, thanks for watching. I have embalmed a child before. Yes, someone asked that. I actually embalmed many of the children at the mortuary that I worked at simply because I wasn't a mom. And a lot of embalmers who are parents, they get very upset at embalming children. So I took that. Yep, I totally overpicked that show. You're very welcome, Deborah, and I'm always here for if you need anything else. But try that. I would love, if you try that, Deborah, I would love to hear how it went for you. So send me a message on Instagram on my Good Grief page and let me know if that worked out for you. Someone asked, do you have to have a perfect life to counsel? And the answer, I think, is no. I don't know anybody that has a perfect life. That's like, everybody has issues they go through. And I think that if you're counseling on what you're an expert on, there's certain things that you shouldn't be. If you're going to be a counselor, you shouldn't be a complete lunatic, I guess. But like for me, what I counsel on is loss. And I think that the things that I've been through in my own life, the losses that I've dealt with, have actually helped me be a better counselor. Can grief counseling be of help for relationships? Absolutely. Yes, 100%. There's so many things that you don't realize pertain to grief. And you may be in the middle of a grieving process, but you don't understand it or want to even admit it to yourself. Sometimes even something like you changed careers, that can cause a grief reaction that can change your life. So definitely, if you guys think that you're going through something, feel free to reach out. Someone said, I think the thing I take from this is not to bottle up and express if you can. And yes, 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 express, express, express. Which brings me to something that, a lot of people ask, well, why do I need a grief counselor? Why do I need to talk to somebody? Can I just talk to my friends? And the difference, I think, is this. You need to get it off your system. You need to talk. And a grief counselor is someone that is trained to listen to you and give helpful suggestions. Friends are not always equipped emotionally to help you through certain things, and they can't always handle it. So that's why you can reach out to a professional. Yes, so if you're always the strong one, it is tough to ask for help, but it's the healthiest thing to do. And sometimes the strongest ones need it the most, I think. Yes, someone asked about embalming certain people, and you're not, it's unprofessional to talk about who you've embalmed them. You don't typically do that. So one of my professors years ago told me a story about how she learned that lesson the hard way. She was telling a story in a restaurant. She was sitting at a booth, and there was someone in a booth behind her, and she was telling someone who she was with about this gruesome case that she had embalmed. She talking about all the details in this public booth at a restaurant. And the person behind her got up and said, "That was my brother." So she had no idea, but the person that she had embalmed and was talking about all those details, his brother had been sitting right behind her, and he knew what she was talking about because the case was so certain. So yeah, you gotta be, as a true professional will not tell you stuff like that. So how do you become a professional? I went to mortuary college, and my college offered bachelor's degrees in mortuary science. And it's a really, really intense program, but so worth it. Yes, never be afraid. I think what's so cool about living in this day and age, and I think social media has actually helped too, is that there's so many more people who are not afraid to kind of reach out and say, "Hey, I'm not okay, and I need some help." And it's a really beautiful thing. I especially think for the metal community. A lot of us grew up not being able to talk about our feelings. We grew up a little disenfranchised. We grew up with just a lot of stuff going on, and it's hard. It's hard for us to open up. And like metal music is how we open up. It's cathartic for us to go scream lyrics to a song or bang our heads. But it's considered weak to say, "I'm not okay." Nowadays, I think that we're seeing and understanding that it's very okay to be that way. So I encourage all of you to do that and reach out for help if you need it, talk about it, and understand what grief is, and that, so many different things can cause grief reactions. Someone said they still struggle with the death of my dad, mainly because I had to identify him after he committed suicide. I learned to deal with it, but my younger brother and sisters looking at me as the outcast. It's been a struggle with depression. I'm so sorry that that you feel that way. Going through a traumatic experience like that sits with you for a long, long, long time, and it's hard. And maybe some open conversation with your sister and brother too. so that they understand what you went through, witnessing that. I'm so sorry, Alma. That's terrible. And yes, people who, you know, a lot of people are so busy taking care of other people, they don't take care of themselves. Actually, a lot of people that I counsel are caretakers for terminally ill people or people with Alzheimer's. And they're so overwhelmed and so angry, and they don't realize that they're grieving. So that's something that I also help a lot of people with. You have to be very mindful of your time and, getting a little self-care. And self-care looks different to every person. For me, it's going to get, one of those cheap $35 massages, once a week, because that's my time to zone out, or going to yoga class. It could be running on a treadmill for some of you, or whatever it is, but you definitely need to practice self-care. That's great, Wayne, that you've made some friends that you can talk to. Everybody needs someone to talk to. I know, Elma, it's really, really hard not to be angry when you feel such loss. Talk about it, scream about it, yell about it. You're allowed anger, but just watch you take it out on, take it out on a piece of paper, write some angry poetry, there's do stuff like that, get it out in healthy ways. And definitely if you have a support system around them, get it off your chest, talk to them about it. Someone said, what's the weirdest organ to touch? Man, you guys, I'll tell you a secret. It was so hot when I did my first autopsy, I passed out. I was wearing a sweater under my scrubs and everything, and it I remember I turned around and I looked, and there was they were doing the brains behind me, and I was working on the front of a body, and I saw a face pulled over, the skin pulled down, and they'd opened up the skull, and I was just boom. So I found that autopsies are super barbaric feeling, whereas embalming, it's invasive. It's very invasive, but not as much so as the autopsies were. And so that was a little shocking the first time, but again, you get over it. So you guys, I got to get out of here in a minute. My computer's actually going to die, but I wanted to say thank you so much. Deborah, I'm here for you if you need to talk. Don't worry about it. So if you need anything, please write to me. You guys have been sharing so much, and I think it's so fucking cool. Thank you so much. And thank you all for the people that were sharing, for not writing, stupid comments. And I want this Tuesday for us to be a really special, safe place for us to hang out with each other and be able to talk openly and give advice to one another. So let's keep it a positive space and a safe place. And I will see you guys next week, okay? All right, this was such a pleasure. Thank you guys. Bye.